So, welcome to you all. I'm really excited to be part of this Black Wisdom Summit, which I think is maybe a first-time thing, so we're making history here together. My name is Kaira Jewel. I'm a Buddhist Dharma teacher and a mindfulness teacher. I teach around the globe, but I live right now in Colombo, Sri Lanka, so it's early morning for me here. And I have been practicing since 1997, so over 20 years, mainly in the tradition of Thich Nhat Hanh, a Vietnamese Zen lineage. I was a nun for 15 years in that tradition, living in France and Germany and the US. So my focus in my practice as a mindfulness practitioner and also a teacher has been us, folks of color, how we can access this beautiful path, and also children, young adults, teenagers, offering retreats for that group, activists, environmentalists, artists, educators. I've done a lot of stuff in schools, bringing mindfulness to educators, parents, and students. So a little about me. I'm biracial. My mother's African American. My father's European American. I grew up in Chicago on the north side and also in Nairobi, Kenya, and then in Atlanta for high school. So had a lot of homes. So today I'm going to speak about loving kindness, also known as metta in the Pali language, in which the Buddhist teachings were recorded first. Metta is M-E-T-T-A, and it's also known as Maitri in Sanskrit, another language of the scriptures, and Maitri is spelled M-A-I-T-R-I. So this is a practice that I love to speak about because it's so central to cultivating wisdom and transformation in our hearts. Just to give you an overview, these teachings of loving kindness are part of a larger practice of 4 heart practices, which is one way of talking about them. They're also called the Brahma Viharas, which means the heavenly or sublime divine abodes. And the Brahma Vihara is also translated as the immeasurables, the 4 immeasurables, because they are states that are boundless, infinite, illimitable. And when we develop them in our meditation and in our daily lives, these attitudes of mind help make the mind immeasurable, like those that dwell in heavenly abodes, divine abodes. So each of them is a seed that we have already in our consciousness, and it can be cultivated and become, vast and without limit. So the first of these 4 practices is metta or maitri, which is loving kindness. And the root of both of these words is mitra, which is friend, friendliness. So basically, metta, maitri, is this benevolence, this wishing well, wanting happiness and goodness for ourselves and for others. So it's not only the intention, but it's also the capacity to offer joy and happiness. So I'll just briefly tell you what the other 4 are, and then we'll go to loving kindness. So compassion is the second one that's taught of these 4 heavenly abodes, 4 immeasurable minds. Compassion is the intention and capacity to relieve and transform suffering and sorrow, both in ourselves and in others. It's this willingness to be there, to open our heart to what's painful, not numbing or turning away from suffering, but we turn toward it with love. So just to distinguish between metta, loving kindness, and compassion, which in the Pali and Sanskrit languages is translated as karuna. Compassion is karuna. Sometimes people ask, what's the difference between the two? Loving kindness is the attitude of love towards, goodness, towards seeing the good, bringing happiness to ourselves and others. Compassion is about bringing love when there's suffering, when there's sorrow. So that's a distinction. The third practice is mudita, which is joy. It's sometimes translated as appreciative joy. So we desire and cultivate joy in ourselves, and we also wish it and appreciate it in others. So Thich Nhat Hanh, my teacher, would say, if our love doesn't bring joy to both ourselves and our beloved one, then it's not true love. The fourth of these beautiful heart practices is called equanimity, or also translated as inclusiveness. And in Pali, it's upekkha, and in Sanskrit, it's upeksha. So both of these words mean to be able to look over and to see all around. So it's like you go to the top of a mountain and you can see all sides. So when you have equanimity, you are free from attachment and discrimination. You have a sense of impartiality, tolerance, being able to let go. You can see all around, so you don't take this side over that side. You can see what's in people's hearts, even if they've hurt you. So it helps you to let go. You see the suffering that they have when they inflict it on you. So, like I said, it's also translated as inclusiveness in my tradition, which for me is also a bit more an engaged, involved understanding of equanimity. So with all of these four really support and intertwine, right? And when you practice one deeply, you practice all four. So we're going to look at loving kindness in this teaching, but know that when you do that, you will be doing the other three as well. And at the end also, we'll do a short practice, so you'll get to experience in a meditation, a guided meditation, cultivating and offering this practice of love and friendliness to yourself. So, this is an online summit where we're learning about mindfulness and cultivating wisdom. So just as mindfulness trains the mind, metta, loving kindness, friendliness, trains the heart. So there's a story from the Buddha's time where he asked his students, if you put a handful of salt in a glass of water, would you be able to drink it? And his students said, no, it would become too salty and undrinkable. And the Buddha said, well, what if you put that handful of salt into a river, a big flowing river? Could you still drink from the river? In those days, they drink from rivers. And his students said, no, a handful of salt wouldn't affect the drinkability of water in a river because it's so vast. And so the Buddha said, it's just like that with our hearts. If we make our hearts, our minds vast like a river, then a handful of salt, the suffering of our lives, won't affect our state. So loving kindness is a practice of growing our hearts so that the vicissitudes of life, the difficulties, the challenges, the oppressions, the pain, the bitterness, the disappointments, the depression, the loss, the grief that we encounter, the salt in our life is not landing in a small glass and making it undrinkable, making us heavy and tight and losing all of our joy, losing all of our balance. This practice of loving kindness grows our heart so that when these difficulties arise, we have much more space to contain them, and the flow keeps going, the flow of this living river, and so we can process, we can metabolize, we can transform the hardships. And this is something, as those of us in the African diaspora with African ancestry, we all know this very well in our bones, in our DNA. We know how our ancestors practiced to make themselves like big rivers that could receive all of the tragedy that the transatlantic slave trade brought, that the transcendence that we see in our own history is a dharmic manifestation of this wisdom of our ancestors. So loving kindness, just to say from the outset, is not weak. It's not permissive and passive. It can be fierce. It can set boundaries. It can be fearless and strong so that we respond appropriately to aggression and without hatred. One of the main characteristics of a state of metta, loving kindness in our heart, is the absence of hatred. So it doesn't mean that we can't stop harm, but we don't stop it from a place of hatred. And we can think about our beloved Martin Luther King Jr. As an example, even Harriet Tubman. So many of our ancestors who called for justice and who were very strong, very powerful, but they were not motivated by hatred. They were motivated by love, and a love that could see deeper than the surface of someone, even someone who was acting as their enemy. They didn't see that they had an enemy, unless it was ignorance, unless it was discrimination in someone, not the person themselves, but the attitude of mind, and that can always be changed. So that's why these wise saints of our African American community, they didn't go to the level of hatred, because they knew hating a person doesn't actually change anything. It just creates the seeds of war and more violence. But doing everything you can to remove ignorance, that's worthwhile. And that's what loving kindness allows us to do, is to get to the root of the problem, which is not trying to eliminate another person. So with loving kindness, we need to begin with ourselves. With all of these Brahma Viharas, it's very important that we know how to cultivate these attitudes in ourselves, so that we know how to then bring this same quality, this life-giving, life-affirming energy to others. So this is Toni Morrison, our beloved Toni Morrison, who recently passed away. You are your best thing. Okay? So we start with turning this kind regard, this friendliness towards ourselves, because we are our best thing. And we can only cherish others when we know how to cherish ourselves. So love is based on understanding. We can only love ourselves if we understand ourselves. Self-love is about self-understanding. And for me, it's a whole lifetime to truly understand ourselves. This is something that we do right away. We need to take time to get to know ourselves well, to commit to ourselves, our own growth and our own well-being. So there was a professor who once came to Plum Village where Thich Nhat Hanh was teaching and lived. He founded this monastery in France. A professor came and wanted to write a book about Thich Nhat Hanh and Thomas Merton, who was a Catholic monk, because they both had been active to end the war in Vietnam, and they experienced themselves as spiritual brothers, even though they came from two different traditions. So he asked to have an interview with my teacher about his encounters with the Trappist monk, Thomas Merton. And Ty said, you should write a book about yourself. So he actually gave this man an interview, and he did write a beautiful book about Thich Nhat Hanh and Thomas Merton. But Ty's teaching to him in that moment was, don't write a book about me, write a book about yourself. And he told all of us that after this encounter. He said, each of you should write a book about yourself. It means we value ourselves and our stories enough. We love ourselves enough to try to understand ourselves, to make sense of our stories. He was saying we should each be most interested in our own journeys, in our own stories, in our own development, that self-understanding, which is the foundation of self-love. So I watched a webinar from Dan Siegel, a neuroscientist, about the teen brain. This was some years ago. And I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he said something like the key, the biggest determining factor in our ability as parents, it was a talk for parents, to develop a secure bond with our children, our teens, is our own self-knowledge. So our own self-understanding. And I would say that's also true for our ability to develop bonds with anybody. That to the extent that we really know ourselves, that's the extent that we can really connect with and be intimate with others in a meaningful way. So that depends on our own relationship with ourselves. And I think we can get confused and look for intimacy and love and affirmation to come externally. And of course, loving relationships and people who can guide us and hold us are very important. But when we really connect to our own internal inner experience, which is its whole world, and there's always so much more to learn than what we've seen. When we really connect with that, it's very fulfilling, and we're not as dependent on that kind of love and affirmation coming to us from outside. So we don't feel like we're empty and we need someone else to fill us up, but we learn to generate the sense of, our own well. We each have a well inside of us, and it might be covered over, and we might think we have to get water from other people's wells. But this practice of mindfulness, of loving kindness, is about returning home to ourselves and finding and deepening those wells so that they are always there. There's an infinite source of water there. Just like we mentioned the immeasurable mind at the beginning, that water of life, that water of inspiration, of love is infinite. And this practice, we have to go back and touch it in ourselves. And actually, that's what makes us very attractive to other people. And then people naturally want to come and be with us because we've found that source inside of us. We're not hungry looking around, for other people to give it to us. Another quote from Toni Morrison. I'm going to bring her in with us a lot this morning. This is from one of her novels. She says, "You're turning your whole life over to him. Your whole life, girl. And if it means so little to you that you can just give it away, hand it to him, then why should it mean any more to him? He can't value you more than you value yourself. So how we value ourselves is how other people also value us. So it's very important to value ourselves to the utmost, because that respect that we have for ourselves gets communicated through our very being to other people. So when we bring our own attention and kindness towards ourselves, we cultivate this really solid source of energy inside of us that's not dependent on what others think about us, that doesn't make us go up and down according to, the winds of praise and blame, gain and loss. So it helps us not be so defensive, not so threatened by others' disapproval. When other people criticize us, we take it as not as a critique of our character, but as a moment of unskillfulness that we can improve on, we can master, we can get better at, but we let it go. It doesn't derail us because we have that foundation, a strong center of knowing who we really are, knowing that we are worth that respect, that love, that benefit of the doubt, right? When something hard hits us. So I remember as a child, some of you also had this toy. It was like an egg. It was called a Weeble Wobble, and it had something quite strong, something very solid at its base, at the bottom, so that when you tipped it over, it might go very far over, but it would never fall over completely. And then it would come swing back this way, and it would weeble, weeble, wobble, wobble, back and forth until it would upright itself all by itself. I love that toy. So this is something, if we learn to bring deep love and regard to ourselves, we find this deep center inside, so that whatever comes our way, we can slowly, it might take a while, but we're on our way back to our center. So this is one of my most favorite passages from Beloved, also a novel by Toni Morrison. I actually read this passage at my high school graduation, which was almost 30 years ago now. This is the scene where Baby Suggs, a woman preacher in the novel Beloved, she preaches a sermon in this place called The Clearing. And it's an exhortation to incredible self-love and communal affirmation. I'll just read a part of it to you. Here, she said, in this here place, we flesh that weeps, laughs, flesh that dances on bare feet in grass. Love it hard. Yonder they do not love your flesh. They despise it. No more do they love the skin on your back. Yonder they flay it. And oh, my people, they do not love your hands. Those they only use, tie, bind, chop off, and leave empty. Love your hands, love them, raise them up and kiss them. Touch others with them, pat them together, stroke them on your face, because they don't love that either. You got to love it, you. And no, they ain't in love with your mouth. Yonder out there, they will see it broken and break it again. What you say out of it, they will not heed. What you put into it to nourish your body, they will snatch away and give leavings instead. No, they don't love your mouth. You got to love it. This is flesh I'm talking about here. Flesh that needs to be loved. Feet that need to rest and to dance. Backs that need support. Shoulders that need arms. Strong arms, I'm telling you. And oh, my people out yonder, hear me. They do not love your neck unloosed and straight. So love your neck. Put a hand on it, grace it, stroke it, and hold it up. And the dark, dark liver, love it, love it. And the beating heart, love that too. More than eyes or feet, more than your life, holding womb and your life, giving private parts. Hear me now, love your heart, for this is the prize. Saying no more, she stood up and then danced with her twisted hip the rest of what her heart had to say, while the others opened their mouths and gave her the music. Long notes held until the 4-part harmony was perfect enough for their deeply loved flesh. She's a master, this ancestor now that we all have. Ancestor Toni Morrison. So she's beginning to talk now about how do we do this self-love. It's appreciating our bodies, holding our bodies. In meditation or any time through the day, bringing our hands to our chest, one hand to our chest, both hands, even a hand of gentleness to our cheek or to our forehead, or even holding ourselves, giving ourselves a hug. These things may seem a little strange. We may not have been brought up to do things like that. People might think we're weird, but they actually communicate something very deep to our own nervous system. Neuroscientists have found that putting our hands on our chest, even for 5-10 seconds, breathing deeply, calms the nervous system. It helps that reptilian brain feel safe. And we can tell ourselves when we do this, I am safe, I am safe. So many ways we can practice self-love, self-care. Slowing down, taking time to do the things we need to do in our life, to eat. Just eating, enjoying our food rather than eating while we read or watch the news or, talk on the phone or, answer email. Just eat, just enjoy, let your body be nourished by the food. Take a pause, take a breath. We don't have to fill every single free moment with things to do. Looking out at the sky, looking at a tree, taking a walk, exercising. Being aware of tension, releasing it. So one of the great gifts of mindfulness is it helps us to be in our bodies more of the day. So often we're up in our minds and we forget that we have a body. So we want to come back and be in our bodies regularly. Be aware of our posture. Notice if we're holding tension, stress, if we're rushing. Take a breath and release that. Just restart. So we want to do regular check-ins with ourselves throughout the day. Take time. I have a friend who's a teacher in Germany. When I used to live there, she said in her school they changed from having paper towels in the bathroom after you wash your hand to having the hand dryer machines. And at first she was irritated because it took longer to sit there and let your hands dry under the hot water. She was in a rush. But she'd been practicing coming on retreats with us. And so she realized, actually, this is an opportunity to practice, to meditate, to slow down, to nourish myself, to just take my time as long as it takes to dry my hands, not be in a rush. So that became her little moment, a mini moment of meditation. So we can all bring little moments of stopping into our daily life to resist this habit of rushing, always needing to do something. So this practice of caring for ourselves, and we're going to do a meditation where we cultivate kindness, well-wishing towards ourselves. We might think it's selfish, that we should be loving other people, that, is too self-centered to focus on ourselves, but it's not. Okay, when we truly love ourselves, that's actually that's what motivates us to take care of others. Um, because it helps us to have this genuine inner life, this real relationship with ourselves, and that's the basis of us really being able to be there for others. So, this self love is about listening to ourselves, hearing our own calls. Sometimes the body is sending SOS signals and we are ignoring it, we're suppressing them. We need to rest and we suppress that and we go out and do the next thing. Or we need some quiet time and we go, you know, putting things into our body that aren't good for our body. Our body has pain. We ignore it. We take this, we take that to suppress the pain. So this listening to ourselves or our emotions might be our care, our attention, but we might suppress that. And that actually leads to physical illness eventually. So this listening to ourselves is what we want to be doing every day. How am I doing? What's happening in my body, in my mind, in my feelings? What's needing attention? There's a beautiful phrase from a teacher, John Tarrant, who says, attention is the most basic form of love. So we need to bring that attention to ourselves. And that ability to listen to ourselves, to be attentive, is what allows us to listen to others, to really hear them, to hear the nuances of not only what they say, but what they don't say, the silences that contain so much. So it's not that we love ourselves above others, but that in genuinely loving ourselves, we touch our love for all beings. We see everybody wants to be safe, everyone wants to be happy, just like I do, right? And that's what is the basis for our wish to cultivate love for others. So there's a whole lot more to share about how you can practice loving kindness for others, but I think I'll close the teaching here and invite us to do a practice, trusting that as we develop more this sense of kindness and friendliness and real love for ourselves, that will naturally flow out to others. In ways that are really appropriate, right? Because one of the things about loving kindness is it's not that we just wish it for others, but we're actually able to manifest and help people feel loved. And this isn't our idea of what other people need that we impose on them. It's something that actually makes them happy. So that's something we also want to spend time investigating. Sometimes we love people the way we think they need to be loved, and that actually doesn't bring them happiness. It suffocates them, or it undermines them somehow. So real love is based on understanding, just like with ourselves. It's what helps us to see really deeply into the other person. We're really going to make them happy that I can do or say or not do or not say. And that's what helps them to feel truly loved. So this will be a 10-minute practice, and just give you a little instruction before we begin. I'm going to offer phrases that you can say to yourself. If they fit for you, if not, you can always substitute your own phrases. In general, with these kinds of practices, there's 3 elements. There's the phrases, just helping the mind stay focused on generating this attitude towards ourselves. The second aspect is the energy. We start with connecting to our heart and generating this sense of kindness towards ourselves. So the generating of energy. And then the third part is we visualize whoever it is, whatever it is we're sending kindness to. So in this practice, we'll just be focusing on sending kindness and friendliness to ourselves. So you might want to bring to mind yourself as a child. You could bring an image of yourself to mind, or yourself as you are now, or maybe yourself as an older person, or maybe a time in your life when you were very happy or very in need of friendliness or very insecure. So you can connect with yourself at any point in your life and try to get an image of yourself. Maybe it's right now, maybe it's you as a baby, you on your deathbed. Let yourself connect with you visually, and then you're going to be, offering this energy from the heart, like a candle light radiates light out in all directions. Think of a light of friendliness, of kindness that's in your heart. It's going to just be radiating just a very gentle feeling of care, just as if you were holding a newborn or holding the hand of your elderly grandmother, and you would feel this sense coming from your heart of wanting to protect, wanting to bring kindness, smile to their face, wanting to share your love with them, your wish for their well-being. So that's what we're wanting to generate as we extend that from our heart to whoever is the object of our love. And then the phrases are ones, I'll say them every so often, and you can repeat them if they work for you. If not, you might have other ones, or for some people the phrases aren't so important or so helpful, so you can always drop them if that's the case for you. So this is an offering, and of course we all need to make these meditations our own and adapt them to our own situation. So finding a position that is comfortable and supportive. You can do this practice seated. It's good to have your back straight if you're seated, but also relaxed, to be alert in an upright, dignified way, but also let yourself be relaxed. You can also do these practices lying down or standing. So find a position that's most supportive for you. Feeling your body, connecting with your breath. Giving yourself space to be just as you are. There's nothing to do or make happen or become in this moment. We don't need to become better. That's not the purpose of meditation. It's a vacation from self-improvement. This is a time to just be, allowing ourselves to be. Feel the in-breath, feel the out-breath. Feeling your lungs, which allow this breath to flow. Precious lungs. And nestled in between your lungs is a beating heart. A heart that started to beat when you were a tiny fetus, maybe even less than 4 weeks old in your mother's womb. It's been beating ever since. Connect with this center of your heart, place where emotions flow, where the capacity to love and extend kindness is found. If it feels easeful, natural, you can bring a hand to your heart and connect with this amazing power, this incredible potential that each of us has to cultivate kindness, friendship, friendliness, love for ourselves, for others, for the entire cosmos. And trust that it's there and that it can grow and grow and grow without limit. So bringing an image of yourself to mind, offering yourself genuine care and kindness through these phrases, which can be whispered in your mind, in your heart, or sung, or shouted out, whatever you need. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be safe. May I live with ease. Picturing yourself in your mind's eye with these wishes fulfilled in a situation, in a life form in which you're smiling, surrounded by loving people, places, structures that care about you. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease, without struggle. Showering yourself with kindness. Feeling how deserving you are. Touching your worth. Just because you are a human being. That's all. That's all you need to deserve this love. Because you're alive right now. Nothing can disqualify you. May I be safe and free from inner and outer harm. May I be happy and content. May I be healthy and strong to whatever degree possible. May I live with ease and well-being. May an abundance of love flow throughout my life. Really feeling this kindness entering yourself. Sometimes we can generate it from within. Sometimes it helps to call on those we know love us and visualize them sending us love. That can help as a first step if we find it hard to generate love for ourselves. So you could invite an ancestor, a spiritual teacher, a pet, a child that you know you feel loved by to be with you right now if it's hard to cultivate this for yourself in the moment. Visualize them sitting next to you or supporting you somehow and sending you these friendly wishes. May I be safe and free from inner and outer harm. May I be happy and content. May I be healthy and strong. May I live with ease and well-being. May I have all the support that I need when I need it. Here, in this here place, we flesh that weeps, laughs, flesh that dances on bare feet in grass. Love it hard. Breathing in and out, feeling the love of all of our ancestors for us, including ancestor Toni Morrison. Breathe that in. Feel yourself loved, precious, beloved. So we'll take a deep breath and we'll close our meditation here. You can slowly open your eyes if you had them closed. Take a moment to just look around and reconnect with your surroundings. And see if you can bring this attentiveness to yourself, this attitude of loving kindness to yourself throughout the day. Maybe you take a pause before you eat, taking a breath. Maybe you slow down when you take your shower. Just really express kindness to your body as you wash. Maybe you smile to yourself when you do something unskillful or that you wish you hadn't done, a smile of gentleness, kindness. I invite you to bring this attitude into your day, into your life. And it was lovely to have the chance to be together with you. May we all go with energy and determination on this path of cultivating immeasurable, boundless hearts of love for ourselves and for all beings. Thank you.